So that was thing in place, which didn't work. And then the first scroll bar, here's a little control. It would move up and down to scroll. And here's a folder with a menu at the bottom. Okay, so here's, instead of a little pop-up menu, one of a kind, this says edit, and then there's the names of the items. So these are the items of the menu, and this is the name of but you could touch on this to get new choice of which menu title you want, and then that one menu would be available here. Now again, this had the problem that if your window wasn't wide enough, you couldn't see all the choices. And so then we went to, here's text selection with the scroll bar, and we tried to make the scroll bar proportional, that if half of the text is showing, then the size of the thumb there would be half. And people sort of didn't get that you could click on it then. It didn't look like an affordance anymore. But text selection, one of the problems with text selection is you need to select, in order to select a range of characters. So the old terminals, you would point at something and a character itself would light up as a block. But we wanted to select from here to there, which means you had to select from between these two characters to between those two characters. And when you had an arrow, it was unclear, were you trying to point before or after this character that you're pointing at? And so we switched from an arrow to the I-beam cursor that kind of guides you that, oh, there's a vertical line there, you're supposed to click between characters. That was what the I-beam cursor was all about. We committed at that point to a one-button mouse. There's early spline algorithms that we didn't really use. Here, I'll move this down so you can see.
Oh, there you go. I just move this a little bit.
All right.
All right.
Here, we made our first pull-down menus, but they were on the top of the screen, top of the window, not the top of the whole screen. And so now these across here were the titles of the menus, and then these were the items. So that was our first pull-down menu, but it wasn't. It was on the window, and I guess when Windows eventually copied the Mac, they screwed up and took our bad design instead of our better design.
What year are we at about there? You know?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't. I wish I'd written dates on all these Polaroids. That would be a good thing to do, but I didn't. I think the Lisa shipped in, what, 70? We started in 79 or something?
Yes, the Lisa one in January.
Shipped in 83.
Announced anyway, I guess.
It shipped in 83.
Yeah, early 83.
A year before Mac, which
right.
is here, January 84.
Yep.
But what time were these developments? It was probably 79, something like that.
Oh, really? That early then for some of those? Wow.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm not. I'm not sure on that.
Well, I'm not. I was just me asking you off.
3 years before it shipped, or 2 years before, 2 or 3 years before it shipped. Then, so this is where the menus move to the top, and that's what I was talking about earlier. That now you would have to reach all the way up to the top, but by mouse scaling and by pinning, we made that work and make it actually make it faster than any other way. The one place you could quickly get to was a little upward jerk, and you'd be at the top. So you could very quickly get to these. Also, what was beautiful about the pull-down menus, having the whole width and the whole height, is there's also a kinesthetic memory of, oh, it's over here. And kind of before you even got it in your mind that you're printing, you know all the filing stuff is over in that corner. And your hand is kind of kinesthetically is reaching there before, while you're still thinking about the text you're typing and working on, you're kind of reaching there as an overlap. So the pull-down menus gave kind of a sense of where things were. It's actually always true that the title is quite a bit narrower than the items. So as you scan across here and they go flip, 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 flip really quickly, you're really multiplying the screen area. If you took all of the items and laid them out side to side, it'd be, 5 screenfuls wide. We're kind of multiplying the screen area here by having the titles be shorter, but because you could sort of swing across all the titles, it felt like you had an openness. It was explorable. You could figure out, what are all my options now? If you're stuck, you don't know what your options are, just swing across the top and you can see all the choices. These are all of your options that are possible. Recognition is much easier than recall. Recalling a command and being able to type it in is much harder than picking it from a list. Right? Same thing with file names. You saved a file as, Fred Draft 3, and you can't remember what you called it. But if you see a list of files, oh, it's that one. Mm-hmm. Right. So, on the Lisa, so here is split folders. Like if you wanted to be sort of you're working between two sections of a document, there was a split folders. Here's the dialog box, which on the Lisa was the whole width of the screen. It was thought of as an extension of the menu bar. Now, it's kind of ugly. Now we do it with a smaller box. The Macintosh dialog box was a small box that takes a proportion of the screen. But that's the way it was on the Lisa. It was kind of a thing that hung down from the menu bar for a place to put additional choices or parameters in. I did some work with how to get more mileage off of fonts by algorithmically bolding them, or italic, or inverse, or outline. And I made a little test program that was for just for playing around with and testing some of the things that QuickDraw could do. This was my first sketch pad, and it's a precursor to MacPaint. It was on the Lisa, and this palette of patterns here, texture patterns, because we didn't have colors, but we could do texture patterns. That was sort of the first tool palette, almost. Well, it's more later we got tools, but this was.
I hear what you mean.
Yeah.
Let's go down here.
Go down here. We put Sketchpad, my little test thing. We put that in a folder. Well, because remember, folders and documents were a little confused. It was really in a document, but we called them folders. Here's testing QuickDraw. Different things that QuickDraw could do. It could draw ellipses and round rects. There was an interesting place. I didn't think rounded corner rectangles were fundamental enough to include as a graphics primitive. I saw how circles were, and I saw how rectangles were and lines. But Steve tried to convince me that round rects should be. And none of the core graphics standards had anything like that. But he took me for a walk. And he started pointing out things that had radius corners. And finally, when he got to a stop sign, no parking sign that had, a lot of places in the world have rectangles that have rounded corners. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I figured it out. And it turns out I came in the next day, I had it working. Because if you have something that can draw an oval, to draw a rounded rectangle just means, well, like if you wanted to stretch it out this way, whatever you're doing, when you get halfway through, stop doing it for a while and keep doing more of the same, and then continue. And as far as having a flat spot on the top, it's instead of starting with the left side and the right side touching each other, just offset them initially. And so it didn't really take any extra code. It just took knowing that we wanted it.
And it would just the bigger you made it, the more I guess it would adjust that round perspective of the round corner, right?
Well. Though the rounded corner rectangle has the radius of the rounding and a flat spot.
Right.
So all I was doing is taking this and introducing a flat spot on the horizontal and vertical. And so the actual code was the same for drawing one of these as for drawing a rounded corner rectangle. It's just an initial offset and a pausing and the bumping halfway. So Steve convinced me of that. Okay. We tried on the Lisa, we tried rounded corner pull downs, and they were a pain in the neck. We bent it up. See, here's awkward when you've got patterns in a pull down. The rounded corners are kind of in the way, and we ended up not staying with that, I think.
Let me adjust this.
Okay.
There you go.
So, how to deal with desktop clutter. And we thought, well, let's introduce something called a tray. In a physical desk, you have inboxes and outboxes and some kind of trays that you organize your work in. So we invented something called the tray that you could make a document sort of zip into, but you could quickly get back to it. And that didn't last very long. This ideas for a graphics editor. One of the problems, so Larry Tesler had a license plate, no modes. In the old dumb terminals, what you would do in text editing is you would get into delete mode, and wherever you move the cursor, it would delete, right? So rat-a-tat-tat like a machine gun. That was dangerous. And so a better way to do it would be to select a range of text and then choose an operation like make it bold or delete it or copy it or cut it or something else. So select then operate is a modeless way. You're not getting into delete mode. So he had the license plate no modes. So our graphics editor, when you wanted to stretch out, let's say you wanted to make an oval shape, you would stretch out a rectangle of marching ants, that's your selection, and you go to a menu and say, put an oval in it. And you get an oval, but you didn't get to see the oval while you were stretching it out. And I said, yeah, I thought this is brain dead. You need to, if you're drawing with a crayon, you need to pick up a crayon. And now every stroke you do is drawing with a crayon. You pick up a pencil, every stroke is thin. Or you pick up an eraser, every stroke erases. And so I made this little graphics editor prototype here that showed choosing a tool, being in a mode. Here we're in a mode for making rectangles. And what I did to make that palatable was come up with a tool palette that shows you this is the mode you're in. You're in rectangle making mode. So this was the first tool palette, actually. You could dip in a rectangle and draw a rectangle, draw a rectangle, draw a rectangle, dip in an eraser and it would erase things, dip in a line thing and it would draw lines, etc. And I brought this in to the people. Rod Perkins was working on the structured graphics editor for the Lisa, and he was trying to do it this modeless way of always stretching out a rectangle of marching ants and then say put an oval in it or put a squiggly line in it. You didn't get enough feedback while you're doing it. I showed each person one at a time. I sat them down and had them draw stuff for this, and they each went, yes, okay. So this was my answer to the dogma about no modes is try this, try using this. And each person said, yeah, of course, that's the right thing to do. So the tool that you're in, the creation tool, needs to be in a mode, but we can make it less dangerous by showing you what tool you're in. So yes, you are in an erase mode, and whatever you touch is going to get erased, but we're doing it in front of your face instead of behind your back.
Well, and you basically created a better navigation / control feature. So you, like you just said, so you know what you're doing and what you have control over. Right. Ultimately,
it's like
with an
eraser, you had to have modes, but if you're going to have modes, you should have a tool palette to show you which
totally
mode
aware
you're
of it and in control of it.
Yeah.
Now, did this become the basis of Lisa Draw?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Mac Paint and Mac Draw?
Well, Mac Paint had tool palette in it too, but Mac Draw was a structured editor that was derived from Lisa Draw, and Mac Paint was a bitmap editor that was derived from my earlier Mac Sketch or Lisa Sketch. Right? So here's what the skins on the Lisa looked like, and we had these drives that were Apple made called Twiggy drives, and it was they were slow and weren't really reliable, and they were part of the problem why we were so slow. And the Mac went with a 3.5-inch disc from Sony that made all the difference. And the Lisa XL had to put the Mac drives in it. Yeah.
All right, let's get over here. Okay.
Okay. Now, the Lisa filing system was what we called the 20 questions filer. Let's say you wanted to move a file from this floppy disk to that floppy disk. Well, you had to first specify which floppy, which drive it's on, and what folder in that, and what folder in that, and which document. That's the source. And then, where do you want to put it? And which drive and folder, and where are you going to put it? And they say move it to there, or duplicate it to there. And we called this the 20 questions filer because it was pretty irritating. You had to answer all these questions. And Dan Smith was working on this, and he was working with Frank Ludoff on the desktop manager for the Lisa, what we call a finder on the Mac. And he came to me and he said, there has to be a better way to do this. We need a graphical way to do this. And so he and I made a little skunkworks project. And we weren't allowed to work on it at Apple because we were in lockdown. We're not supposed to make any new feature changes, just fix bugs and ship. And because we were rushing. And so we got permission from Wayne Rosing to do this, but he said, you have to do it at your houses. You can't do it here or you'll demotivate people. And so over the course of just maybe about 2 weeks, we got a graphical user interface on top of the filing system. Now, the hard work of pre-flighting, is there enough space on the drive for it, and moving the file and all that stuff, that had already been done. This is really putting a front end of sugar coating on the real filing operations. And so these were the first ideas for it. This was just in a graphics editor. I sketched out, well, here's a file drawer, and here's a tool. What are the nouns? What are the objects? Here's a diskette. Here's a folder. Here's a can't read it. A document. Anyway, and so one of the first prototypes was kind of an office desk filer where you had kind of a hierarchy. You'd have 2 windows here, and whatever you select in this, it would show its contents in here. If you selected something here, it would move up to the top and show you the contents there. It's kind of like column view we have now, but a graphical version of column view where you're seeing only sort of 2 columns at a time.
Yeah, I always call it the hierarchical view.
Yeah, this is hierarchical, and so the lower box is the exploded view of whatever's in the top box. Okay, and then we went to here's a graphical diskette directory with icons on the desk for the first time. Now, icons on the desk required that the icons have a mask and data, sort of what parts are black and white, and also what are opaque versus translucent, and just let the desk show through. And one of the problems is that the gray wasn't really gray. We didn't have gray. We only had black pixels and white pixels, so the gray is actually already a checkerboard. So when you move these around, they would kind of beat with the checkerboard and do weird things. And we learned that if you just quantize the movement to even coordinates, it would always have the same checkerboard, so you could design the icon around it. When you drag it, it doesn't actually move by 1 pixel at a time. It moves by 2 pixels at a time, and so it's always on the same even odd of the checkerboard.
So
so it's kind of like the snap in place. Like
Yeah, only on 2 pixels, not on 20 pixels.
It gives you nice smooth movement, and it doesn't mess up the.
It doesn't look weird. It doesn't vibrate as you're dragging it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got this kind of working, and we wanted to bring it in, and we got it pretty much tested. And when we went to bring it in, Wayne Rosing had prepared for us all T-shirts that said "Rosing's Rascals." And we wore these T-shirts as we demoed this, and it was his mark, his stamp of imprimatur. He gave us permission to do this Skunkworks project. Don't all you other guys start adding new features to your apps, or we'll never ship. So we were Rosing's Rascals, and that kind of saved the day and made a graphical finder on the desk for Lisa, and that was just before shipping. All right.
Yeah, I mean, looking backwards, that was pretty crucial. And going forward.
So what else have I got for you here? Oh, we had a slow processor and a slow drive, and we couldn't wake up a process to refresh a window. If you move one window and uncover part of another one, you gotta be able to redraw that quickly. But waking up the whole program that made that in order to do that was was too slow. So we made a sort of journaling capability inside QuickDraw, the graphics primitives, where you could say, start recording, draw a bunch of stuff, and stop recording, and encapsulate that all into a QuickDraw picture, which was a structured representation of that stuff that was drawn. And that could be drawn just by the window manager. It didn't need the app there. The window manager could fill in, but it had everything you could draw had to be able to encapsulate, and the whole thing had to be able to scale too. So we did bitmap stretching. I did make it so that the icons and bitmaps and stuff could be stretched. So if you stretched a window, we could still draw that picture. So here's pictures and scaling. And let's see what other cool things we got here. We're getting closer to what we shipped.
Not this picture here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one of my scanned images from the fax machine. And, yeah.
I mean, clearly what you're showing us here, my take on it too, and I think it's so great for the documentary, is how this is a lot of the groundwork, obviously, to bring the Lisa to market. I mean, to bring the Lisa's interface. You're redesigning and researching interface design.
So this is an answer
right into the Mac.
Right. All of this plugged right into the Mac, and it also answers anybody's. If anybody thinks we went to Xerox and copied what they did, they're just dead wrong. There's a whole lot of engineering. This is all after the Xerox trip. We had to figure out how to make all this stuff really actually work for real applications. And